only you can allow someone to reject you. That's how that all works, right? Because rejection is really just you saying, I can't do it. You're not seeing the road for yourself. There's always a road. There's always a way. You have a way to get that answer. You're just doubting it because someone told you it wasn't the right way or you shouldn't do it that way.
Hi guys, welcome to Ivana Speaks. Today I have the wonderful Danelle Land with me. She is a transformation specialist and she works on nervous system regulation, breaking family generational trauma patterns, etc. Welcome Danelle, and I'm so excited for conversation with you today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Danelle is a woman that has lived 10 lives, and her story is so inspiring, profound, a lot of lessons and a lot of transformation that has occurred. We could probably make this into a series, and we can start with your childhood and what was it like growing up as Danelle?
Yeah, growing up as Danelle. So my childhood, I came into life in my family 8 years after my brother and 5 years after my sister. And as someone who was so much younger than my siblings, I struggled to find connection with them. And it was challenging because even though it wasn't actually like directly said to me that I caused disruption in the family cycle and just in the pattern that was already created before I came, because I was an unplanned pregnancy, I could feel that I caused something to not be right in the family, but I couldn't actually articulate it. I just felt it. I knew that something was not right and that I caused more struggle for my parents and challenges for my brother and sister's relationship because it had already been so developed over so many years. And then here I come into the picture, and how does that change the dynamic of everything? And I really felt the impact of that. Not only feeling the impact of the distance between the relationships that were supposed to be close in life, but also a lot of the negative commentary and things like that. Like, life is hard and we struggle. But in my home, the dialogue was more of there's never a way to overcome it. And you're kind of just stuck. And so you have to put up with whatever life kind of throws your way. And so I grew up with that thought process, with that belief, and I really struggled a lot trying to find happiness and just safety within myself. I think that struggling with connecting, especially in such an early stage in life, it makes you feel like something's wrong with you. It creates a belief that you need to be different, that things are not available to you, and that no matter how bad you want something, it's never going to come to you. Like, it's just not available. You're not enough to get it. Whatever you do never measures up, right? And so that's kind of the basis of my childhood. Growing up, my dad put a lot of demands on me and my performance based on my brother and sister's age. I don't think that I was given the grace of being 5 years younger than my sister and 8 years younger than my brother. I was expected to be able to perform at their level, being so much younger. And that really impacted me in a way that I didn't feel smart. And I struggled with going to school and producing in school. And that whole idea of I couldn't even read a sentence out loud in the classroom. I was so scared of what people were going to think of me if I couldn't pronunciate a word correctly, if I read slower, if I couldn't make the sentence flow just right, like as if I was talking. I was very self-conscious, and I constantly looked for other people to validate my performance instead of just feeling okay within myself and knowing that I was enough. And I think that was really the basis of the beginning of all of the struggles, is just this constant pressure of I don't measure up, I don't perform properly, I'm not aware, a daydream land I lived in a lot of times. I was very creative. I was always daydreaming and getting lost in my thoughts while I was supposed to be helping my dad in the garage or out in the yard or whatever. And he would get frustrated with me for being off in La La Land instead of being focused on helping. And that dynamic actually reinforced that I wasn't good enough, right? And I think as parents, bless my dad's heart, he tried his best to do what he could do for me and teach me the best And as parents, we do our best to say the right things and to impact our children in a way that's going to benefit them. And sadly, we don't really do a very good job of it. And that's part of evolution, I think, in a big way, right? Is that I know my dad did better than his parents, and they did better than their parents, and so on and so forth, right? So it's this evolution that has to happen once we have realization and awareness, right?
Now you're at a place where you're teaching others, but you've been on your own pattern breaking journey through your own life and kind of being different than what you'd seen. And now you're a mom of three boys. And you even mentioned sometimes it's hard to not want to fall back to what you were taught and how you were raised, but you know it in your heart and your being that you want to be the impetus of change and be the change agent for your children. How did that childhood shape you today? And a little bit about your motherhood journey too.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think let's start with the motherhood part, right? Because motherhood really opened my eyes to how my childhood was created and formed, right? We don't quite understand what our parents' struggles are until we're in their shoes. Being a parent is the most challenging job in the entire world. It's the most challenging task, obstacle, whatever you want to call it, to overcome, right? And it's the thing, for me at least in my life, that has really been the catalyst of how do I want to leave the world? Once you become a mother, for me, I became a mother of three very quickly. I had three children back to back, 18 months apart. So the nervous system that I was running on was completely shot. It was so overwhelmed. And my children's were too, because how do you attune to three kids at one time, being one person? You can't. And on top of that, life circumstances for me had me caregiving for two other people at that time. And so I struggled with being enough within myself to provide for all of these people, to keep the house clean, to provide the meals, to make sure the appointments got met. And if I missed something, I felt horrible about myself. I mean, like, it was the end of the world almost. It was bad. And it got to a point where I just started exploding. I was to a point where I couldn't keep myself under control. After my third child, I did get pregnant again. And it came 12 months after having 18 months apart, and realizing in this moment of time, realizing that it was too much for me to handle already. How was I going to handle another one and caregiving for this extra person on top of everything? And life circumstances, I had a miscarriage, and it was really a blessing in disguise. After my miscarriage, I went and I got a tubal done, and I didn't do a lot of research about it, and I should have, because it really threw me into perimenopause faster than I would have been in the first place. Between the hormonal changes that were taking place in my body a year after this tubal and the time frame that my children are in, because my kids are now 5, 4, and 3, because they're back to back like this, right? So my oldest son, 5 years old, is COVID time already, right? So the socialization is really difficult and challenging. School is shut down most of the time. Like, it shut down in April of one year, and it started back up again, but it was minimal and weird. And so in that time frame, my oldest son didn't get the foundational schooling that all the other kids got. They all started pre-K 3. And my son didn't start pre-K 3 because we didn't move to this town until the very end of his 3-year-old year. So he started, like, I think October, November, and then the end of the year is right there, right? So he didn't get this whole year of school the first year. The second year, he had half a year, and then COVID hit. And then his kindergarten year, he went back, but he didn't have the foundation that everybody else had. On top of that, he has dyslexia. And I know it because I was undiagnosed dyslexic through school, and I understood the challenges, and I could see it in him. And I kept asking to get tested, but because his birthday didn't come until June and he wouldn't turn 6, which the state of Texas requires you to be 6 to be tested, he didn't have the opportunity to catch up that year. He was held back. So he flunked kindergarten and was put into a special class. There was a handful of kids that had this problem. They created a special class this one year where they did kindergarten work, and the second semester they did first grade work. So it really strengthened their kindergarten foundation and their first grade foundation. So when they got into first grade the next year, they would excel and have a really good, strong, solid foundation of knowing, right? Thank goodness, because that really helped my son when it came to logic. It helped him to understand that he was smart enough to understand these things, that he just needed the time and the attunement to learn them. And he's brilliant now, right? He's reading at a much higher level grade than he was and all these things. But it took a lot of effort and a lot of patience. And then the other thing too is that the systems that are put in place really don't work for us. They fit people into a box, and most people don't fit into a box, right? So through all of this, my nervous system is going like skyrocket out the roof. Like I cannot stay calm, and I'm blowing up over all the little things at home, right? Like you're not behaving properly. You said the wrong thing. In public, you said a cuss word and you're not supposed to cuss in public because you're a child, right? Like at home, I don't care if you cuss at home, but in public you can't. And so all these really congruence of environment happening for them that's causing so much confusion. And as a child, without the understanding of why you wouldn't cuss as a child in public as to where it would be okay in your home is unfathomable. You don't get it at all. And so it's very confusing. And so my kids would act out more and more because kids are looking for congruence of environment, so they're testing all the time. And so as they test and they don't have a congruence of repeated outcome, it's very confusing for them. So they keep testing to figure out what is the most common outcome that comes from this thing, because it's a variable outcome. As humans, we like to know fact of what's going to happen so that we can feel safe, right? And really that's where my journey into understanding what was wrong with me in my nervous system and my reactions to my kids, and why I couldn't stay calm and present for them like I wanted to, right? I wanted to be this person who could not get overwhelmed with all of the chaos that was happening around me, and be able to hear 3 kids at one time and do for 3 kids at one time, and not have the overwhelm of noise, really is how I can explain it. Just paralyze you. And then when that happens for me, I get angry. And so that would come out on my kids a lot. And it's a lot of the programming that I had because my dad would get angry at me. And so it's this thing of punish the bad behavior. And so it's a learned experience from childhood that I was carrying into my adulthood. And thankfully for my husband, he's able to point those things out to me so I could be more aware of my own self. And, through trial and error and more problems and trying to overcome more obstacles and researching and learning. I mean, I've read so many books now. I didn't think I could read. Being dyslexic, undiagnosed in school, and being so scared to read out loud, I never wanted to pick up a book to read it. I always put that away from me as I'm not able. That's not for me. I'm not a reader. I don't read. I don't like reading, is what I always said. When I started this direct sales business, when my kids got older and I was looking for a way to be able to provide for myself a little bit more in my family, I'm watching my husband struggle going to work and trying to provide for the family. And I watched that in my childhood. I saw my dad struggle, and I saw how it really hurt our life in a big way. So I wanted to be able to help my husband impact our family in a way that is beneficial. So I started selling skincare and having parties and hosting facials and talking about self-love. Even if you don't believe it for yourself, the more that you fake it till you make it. I hate that term really because it's not that. But if you say something enough, you start to believe it. And I was doing this as a job. I wasn't actually believing it about myself, but I had said it enough over the years of doing this that I actually started to believe it for myself finally. Within two years of starting this direct sales company, I'd moved into leadership. I had all of these parties, and these women were interested in how I sampled. They were interested in what I was sampling, and they enjoyed the experience, and it gave them something to feel good about themselves, right? When your skin looks good, you feel good. And I noticed that within myself. I'd never really washed my face or took care of myself before that. And I actually had a boyfriend from Jordan at one point in time before I met my husband, and he asked me, why don't you do facials and do this, like, take care of yourself, he said. And I just was like, well, my mom didn't do that. I never was taught how to do that. And it took me another 10 years to start doing it, but that seed was planted that day of maybe someday I could love myself enough. And so in these moments of selling skincare and inspiring other women so that they can start a job too, and they can be, if you need a second job, an income, whatever, you can do this. Learning how to be an entrepreneur myself, learning how to have my own business, that I could make my own choices, that I'm the CEO of my own life. What? That was cool. And it was really inspiring. And so I started really enjoying the idea of leadership and helping these women who saw me doing the things and bettering my life, and that they wanted to be like me. And that was really kind of one of the eye-opening turning points, that maybe I am something more than what I've ever given myself credit for. The beautiful women of this direct sales company, the leaders that were leading me and inspiring me, they let me know that, there were book clubs and that there's personal development, and that those things are really important, especially if you want to be a leader. If you want people to continue following you and continuing looking up to you, you've got to keep yourself ahead of the game in the aspect of you're caring for yourself, you're providing for yourself, you are tending to your needs. And when you're doing these things and you're showing them how to do it, it's so inspiring to the other person that they want to do it too. And I was noticing that within this system, it was this pattern I started to recognize in the system through this direct sales company, and how people got inspired. Because no one can inspire you. Only you can inspire yourself, right? Something happens that says, ooh, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could be that. And so that was what was so cool, was that I was just this everyday person, very humble about, I'm a struggling mom, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm putting my time and effort into it, and it's rewarding. And so it was beautiful being able to lift women up like this. But not only was I lifting them up, but I was lifting myself up. And I didn't realize that in the whole process. Like, I was doing it externally still. It was all, my whole life, even up to this point, was all about external validation, is proving myself to other people to get the worth, to feel worthy enough about myself.
I think it's so important that we talk about the road that took you to get there. Your story is so inspiring, and I think so many people relate to your story, that Danelle has been on this journey of awakening. And so you guys are kind of seeing her and we talked about, you're always evolving and you're always growing and healing, but you're seeing her kind of on a tail end of figuring out that, wow, what she was experiencing was trauma and patterns that really weren't even her own, and unpacking family lineage stuff. I think it's important, maybe if we run it back even more on your true journey, because it wasn't just you started and then you became a mom of 3 and a wife, and now you're on this healing and providing healing resources for others, but you grew up in a really tough childhood and environment that propelled you into growth. It's kind of a beautiful journey, I think. And I even have so much more respect for you now, knowing everything I know and seeing where you came out of. So, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about that journey? And
Yeah, the struggles, when you come from a place where you look for external validation, it opens up the door for addiction, for giving yourself out in a really disrespectful way, not having pride of your body and the respect of others, even like yourself and others, when it comes to that, right? We have such a duality about us. We're such divine creatures, but we're also so human. And this really is a great paradox of being, because you get the forgiveness as a human to have trial and error, right? Which is the beauty of it all, is that we get to make the mistakes. We get to go down the dark paths. We get to make the choices that make us feel uncomfortable about us. But when we do those things, that's the catalyst of change, because we felt that feeling of ugh. And if we never did that thing, we wouldn't have felt the depths of despair to know that we needed to change, right? So this idea of forgiving yourself for your past mistakes, or what you didn't know you were doing, or even if you knew what you were doing, right? Because there's a lot of that even in my childhood. One of my dad's things was don't lie, don't lie. That was his biggest thing. And so I tested with lying because what is that? And why is it such a bad thing? What is that? Why is it so bad? I don't understand, right? So we test to learn. We need to experiment. We learn through match and mirror. And if we're never mirrored to be able to match it, we can't choose which way we want to go from it, right? And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I want people to know, right? Is that good and bad is just a personal preference. And as a child, we're just so conditioned to think what's good and what's bad and what's right and what's wrong, when there's really just this giant pool of experience that you could choose from and enjoy that experience, right? And when you enjoy that experience, you feel the impact of whatever happened, whether it's negative or positive, settling in yourself, right? Because there is no negative or positive, but we have perception and what lands in us and what impacts us. And we have an idea of how we want to impact the world, no matter what has conditioned us, right? There's this internal thing that we have about us that says, this is right for me, which for me, I call it a shoe, right? Because there's this big bell of choices and there's all of these things that you could choose, and there's different shoes that we wear, and everybody has a size, but then there's also style, right? Like we have so many different shoes that we could wear. There's cleats, there's tennies, there's sandals, there's heels, there's so many shoes. And not only that, there's so many different sizes. So I think when we relate to it as choice and opportunity to be shoes and shoe sizes, it changes the good and bad aspect, right? And it opens up for experimentation without judgment. And I think that's really kind of one of the places we're stuck in is judgment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. In addition to judgment, I think something you and I talked about and really kind of bonded over is that sometimes when you are raised in a family dynamic where love is conditional, not unconditional, we realized a common theme is sometimes that translates into your romantic relationships where you're consistently seeking love and affection, that sometimes it's not even enough from one person. We both kind of agreed that it's never enough because you need to heal and look within. And the greater overarching message is that fulfillment never comes from external, it's always internal. I'd love to talk about your relationship journey and how did you obtain growth from these various connections and come back to self?
Oh, I just really gave myself away to everybody. I gave my power away to everybody. Everybody held my power for so long. You know, what's interesting is when you're new to hearing coming into your power, what does that really mean, right? It's such a vague thing. Like, what does coming into your power mean? And that really means is just living from your authentic truth, being brave enough to say the unspeakable truth that might hurt you in some way, whether it be from another person, outside looking in or whatever. Because the truth of the matter is that no one can reject you except for you, right? And I never learned that until a couple of years ago. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, so profound and so true, right? Because I make what you say about me true or not true in how I respond to what you think and say about me, because I can prove you wrong in my actions. And it blows your words out of the water because what speaks louder, actions or words? Right? And so everyone's going to see that you just are jealous or upset or whatever, or you see something about me that you don't like, so you pick at it. Right? Because we project all the time. If you don't like something about someone else, or you don't want something for someone else, you're trying to save them from their problem that you see them coming into, stop. Because it isn't your shoe. It's their shoe.
And it's
And
their journey.
exactly. It's their shoes to walk that journey in.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you or your experience or what happened to you and your perception. Because as much as we want to say that every time I do this one action, every single time, this is the outcome, it does not happen that way. The outcome changes. I can do something one way and have an outcome. And to get that same exact outcome, you can do something completely different, but the outcome comes out exactly the same. So 2 plus 2 doesn't always equal 4. Sometimes 1 plus 3 equals 4, right? And that's kind of the difference in it, is that, yeah, the number still is the same, but the way we added it or subtracted it or divided it or whatever is different. And that's okay, because there's so many different ways to come up with the same answer, right? It's just about perception and how it feels good for you to move through that experience. Right? And how dare anybody else judge or label how you should feel going through an experience? The other thing too is being vulnerable, opening up to where you authentically feel bad about your actions without being angry at the other person because you're ashamed of yourself. Because when we're ashamed of ourselves, we act badly. We are mad at ourselves. And when we're mad at ourselves, we project that out onto everybody else. Because we just project, right? Again, I see it in you that I don't like what I did, and I'm looking at that and I'm feeling it. And we don't like to sit with the discomfort of our choices and the outcomes that don't really feel right. It's uncomfortable. We avoid discomfort like so bad. The way that our mind and body are designed to keep us alive, the unknown is death. It's scary, and it could equal death. We don't know. We don't know what that's going to lead to. And really, our nervous systems are still stuck in that really tribal aspect. And we don't have the environmental threats that we used to have. And so it's shifted into this emotional space where we feel emotionally attacked. And it's kind of run a little bit rampant, if you will, right? In that space of my nervous system has to protect me from emotional harm. And I believe that we are at a turning point of a society in recognizing that and realizing that we don't have to go from the run on the programming. And I believe that we're at a space of evolving our lineage, our
Conscious
conscious
awareness.
awareness, our consciousness to the next level, right? Into this place where we're now a higher enlightened being running in Earth, I guess, is in this
Yeah.
time-space reality that we're in here.
I think you make such great points, and kind of circling back to the judgment portion of it. I think that we're all in the perfect place in that perfect moment. So, when you tell someone, oh, you should do this, you should do that, their journey and where they are in that moment is exactly where they need to be. And like you mentioned, letting them navigate their way through it is much more impactful than you telling or guiding. I mean, gosh, you probably know it with your children.
Telling people what they should have done sends you into fight or flight because now I'm not enough. So when you do that to someone, you're actually telling them in your own way, that wasn't good enough for me. And if you want to be with me and in my space and environment, in order to keep me comfortable, you have to perform in the way that I want to be. Otherwise, we can't be
Conditional.
together. Conditional. It's so programmed into us from childhood. We feel like we're helping. It feels like you didn't measure up. You're not performing well enough. You might be causing problems.
If I could kind of go back and give myself advice when I was stuck, and I'm sure there's people out there, because we're saying don't listen so much to external opinion. We're saying don't, project. But now let's kind of talk about the self discernment and the self judgment that we put on ourselves.
Definitely, because that's so much part of it, right? Discernment is really kind of a fun thing. I've learned a lot about discernment with my children because my kids are not there yet. Discernment starts to come into play around 12 to 13 years of age. So we develop into this knowing. And I think that before neuroscience could tell us that, we were expected to have discernment as children earlier than that. I know I was. My parents always expected me to know more and to do better and to understand like my brother and sister did when I just couldn't. My brain was not developed. like theirs. They were older than me. They had more years. The physicality of their brain was different than mine. I didn't have the chance to grow yet. I needed the time. Knowledge is such power. When we know this and we can really give our kids the grace and the space to develop the way they need to, so discernment can come in. And discernment, when we don't have it, when we can't develop it at 13 years old because we're in an environment where we're constantly being evaluated, and so we're constantly in fight or flight trying to meet the mark, we're in fawn. Fight or flight is so actually the way this works, and it's so subconscious we don't even know it, is a process. We go into flight. First, we want to run away. If we cannot run away from the problem, then we try to fight it. If we cannot fight the problem, then we freeze. And we're like, oh, what do I do? Crap, it's getting closer, it's getting closer. Let me love on it. Maybe if I love on it and I please it and I give it what it needs, I will be of service. And then I won't die because I'll be needed. And we get stuck right there. If we don't get stuck right there, then we go into flop, which is like, crap, I can't win the love of this person. They're going to kill me even on me loving them and helping them and pleasing them and caregiving and all of this giving I'm doing. I'm still dying. So now I'm just going to flop. And I'm just going to lay here like nothing. I'm dead. I'm going to play dead. So that's the whole idea of the nervous system, right? And what happens is as a child, we go through that process so many times that we develop a knowing of which one we need to go to automatically to save the time that it takes to go through the process. And so we program our knowing in our minds subconsciously to protect us in these ways. And so it's this natural response. If you grow up in an environment where you have to meet the mark all the time, and if you don't meet the mark, you get in trouble or you get punished. So now you're constantly trying to meet the mark every time. And if you don't meet the mark, even for yourself, you now have to punish yourself because you're just so used to it. It's the pattern. We're very lazy when it comes down to it in our brains. We love a shortcut and we don't want to have to work to understand the problem or figure out the problem. So we're like, oh, this looks really similar to this. So we're just going to borrow the outcome and apply it to it, right? When it's actually like completely different.
Right. And even yesterday, you and I spoke about how, as a child, you might want to become the good girl in your family dynamic because you see, oh, that's accepted, but you are naturally, you like to challenge things. Your natural being is curious. You want to challenge the standard norms, but you abide because you notice that actually might give me that acceptance, that recognition, all out of putting yourself on the back seat.
It's an expense
Yeah.
to yourself, 100%. And, sadly, as parents, we put on to our kids that they can't challenge, that you follow the rules, because we don't want to have to waste the time to explain it and to really help disciple the child. Disciple is one of those. Punishment and disciple have been confused when it comes to kids. Tina Bryson and Dan Siegel are amazing psychologists and neuroscience doctors who understand the brain and psychology really well, and they've come up with children's books, and thank goodness they have, because it's really helped me become a better mother and a better person to myself, because the thing is it all goes back to childhood, everything. So if you're struggling in your life in something, look at your childhood. You want to say it's in the past, that it doesn't matter, that it doesn't affect you. I'm sorry, it does. Go look at your childhood, because that's how we see the world. We're programmed conditionally, subconsciously through this lens. And it creates a roadmap or a blueprint for us to follow, because we learn through match and mirror. And so we're just constantly matching and mirroring what we see that we think looks fun or looks good or sometimes looks painful or uncomfortable, because we want to know, what does that feel like, right? Yeah, the idea of just really understanding the depths of who you are. And if you don't understand the depths of who you are, say it. I don't know yet. I haven't experimented enough. I've been confined. And so I need to explore. Had I known to say that years ago, Even when I met my husband, all of the things that he was asking me, like he wants to build this life with me. And for me, my husband is 17 years older than me. He knows what he wants 17 years before I know. And that's such an interesting dynamic, because why would I marry somebody 17 years older than me? What's familiar? Everybody in my life was older than me that I related to in a way. I needed to relate to older people to survive as a kid, because I couldn't meet the mark. So I had to look at them and match and mirror what they were doing, even though I didn't understand what I was doing. In discernment, right? When we don't understand what we're doing, we can't have that discernment, right? When we're just constantly trying to meet the mark, discernment never comes into play, because you're just constantly trying to please. How do you have discernment when you're trying to please? You can't.
I'll say this. What comes to mind when you say that is that there's a great quote that says, what kind of love and relationships you accept is how much you love yourself.
This is something that I tell clients all the time. They're complaining about the other person, right? It's always someone else we want to change. It's never ourselves.
Right.
If they would just change a little, everything would be fine. But the reality of that is that you have OCD and you can't control your outer world to be okay inside. And you need to be okay inside no matter what the outer world looks like. So get okay with it. And that's really the thing, is just let go of expectation. It's the serenity prayer, right? Look at the things that you can change and the things that you can't change. Know the difference and then work on what you can change. Because I guarantee you that if you change your action or your reaction to what is happening, the action that's happening to you is going to change, because we look for congruence of environment. And if you don't give me the congruence that I'm looking for in what I did to you, that you've done over and over and over and over again, and now when I try it, you don't give it to me, I'm like, wait, it's broken. It didn't work anymore. I am now confused. Just canceled each other out. I can't do it anymore. So only you can allow someone to reject you. That's how that all works, right? Bringing it in full circle there.
Yeah.
Because rejection is really just you saying, I can't do it. You're not seeing the road for yourself. There's always a road. There's always a way. You have a way to get that answer. You're just doubting it because someone told you it wasn't the right way, or you shouldn't do it that way.
I think us, particularly as women, we have this maternal instinct too. And I find that sometimes we fall in love with the potential of a relationship, whether partner or, a parent, and then you kind of focus and give it so much energy, but the actions that come back your way are not conducive to you and your well-being, and you're constantly giving more than you're receiving, and it leaves you depleted. You're like, why am I so depleted, and why isn't this going the way I want it to go?
Yeah, I want to add that it's not just women. I can see this in my husband and I's dynamic, right? For him and me, is that in the beginning of our relationship, because he is 17 years older than me, because he does have so much more understanding of life and reality and spirituality and all of these things, I looked to him for answers. Like, he's been a really big guiding light for me in my life up until this point. And I'm grateful, right, for the guidance and the space for growth, right? Because if he had given up on me, we wouldn't be here where we are today. But I also look at that too and I say, wow, he really ignored his feelings and he gave up on himself in a way where it has caused him harm. It's a paradox, right? And that's one that I don't have the answers to, because it's within you. Everyone's different. We all have our own journey and our own path. And it's up to you and your soul's journey and what impact your soul wants to leave on this world and on others, and so I think that that's really the place where we need to learn to pause and really go through a lot of different scenarios of, if I went down this path, there's a quantum realm of choice out there, right? We've talked about quantum choice and this idea that, anything that you choose takes you down a different path, and there's all these different crossroads, right? Really, we're always at a crossroad every moment of every day. There's a choice that we make. It's about the impact. I think you just have to pause and decide, what is it that my soul wants to leave for others to learn from? Because whether you want to acknowledge it or not, we're always learning from each other. Every interaction we have, we're learning from somebody. The words, the body language, everything. It's so impactful. And sometimes, the body language that we speak is so much more impactful than the words we say, because actions speak louder than words.
Everything you're saying is so true. And I have a lot of friends that will say, well, I can't trust this gut thing. I'm going back and forth, etc. And I'm curious what it is for you. But now when I look back at my own journey and my trials and tribulations, my heart was always guiding me.
Mhm.
And I would rationalize things out of with my mind, like, oh, stay in this job longer, or stay in this relationship, or man, this friendship isn't really feeding me anymore. But we've been friends since childhood. When I look back, and hindsight is 2020,
Hmm.
my heart always knew what the decisions were. And now as I'm 33 and looking back, seeing that that was always the most accurate guidance for me and my own journey. So I'm curious, how is it for you?
The difference between understanding what your authentic voice is and like trying to follow that guide, because hindsight, right? It's afterwards that you really understand it. But here's the thing, right? Is that when you have an idea that pulls at your heartstrings, that's authenticity speaking through you. When you have this creative idea, or even maybe somebody said something, it's not even your idea, but somebody said something to you, you just have this, like,
Resonance.
it's this unshakable feeling. You have to do it. That sounds insane. That's insane. That's literally crazy stuff. I would never do that in a million years, but there's something inside of me that wants it. That's what you need to follow. That's your
Oh, not
heart.
suppress,
Don't
often.
suppress that.
Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of us are like, "Oh, that's crazy stuff. Just don't even. You don't even see the road. That's not you. How am I going to do that?" Right? Like, we question and we doubt and we don't see the path. When we don't see the path, that's where you need to go, because the path is always provided. The road, we don't see the road. I've never seen this road. I didn't know I was going to be an author. You ever told me I couldn't even read a book? I was going to write one? Yeah, right. You have to know without a doubt in your heart that that's for you. It's that thing that you're jealous of, that you don't like the other person for because they have what you want. And you're like, I don't like that person because they make me mad because I see what I want in them and I can't have it. It's
Everyone
the
is a
mirror.
mirror to you, and how it reflects back to you is kind of how you choose to see it. And if it's triggering something in you, maybe there is a lesson in that reflection.
Absolutely. And there's something to it. If you're drawn to something, whether you think it's bad, good, ugly, right, wrong, it doesn't matter. Go for it. Because there's something in that. Here's the thing, is that if it's a thing that you think is bad and you feel like ashamed of trying that out, you can't see the amazingness of the goodness without the depths of the darkness. It takes that polar opposite to really appreciate the contrast between those two dynamics. If you never experience a harmful, negative, hurtful experience, and you only experience good, the impact is just tiny. It's minuscule. But the bigger you have felt the greatest of the great and the worst of the worst, the more contrast, the more of a rainbow that you have to be able to live by. And that's what is really cool, right? Is that stop being afraid of the bad thing or the scary thing or the thing that might be wrong or the fear, right? Because we've talked about
Fear. Yeah.
fear is the thing that stops us. Do the scary thing. That's actually one of the best things that I was told by some of the ladies who inspired me in direct sales, was do the thing that scares you the most, because in that, the miraculous happens.
Well, and then this brings up another point that you are very well educated on is the body keeps score, right? So you and I talked about what does suppression of this heart and inner knowing, how does that
Mm.
manifest in the body over time?
Such a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, Dr. Vanderkolk, Bessel Vanderkolk is the psychologist and doctor who wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And he's done so many years of work, like 40 years of work. He's somebody who I highly admire and I follow as a mentor and a teacher on psychology. And I love him because he is such a scientist. Brene Brown is someone who I love to read. And she has the whole idea of paradox, right? I love that she brings paradox to leadership in general, right? And shows these different paradoxes. And one of the paradoxes that she talked about was the paradox of being a scientist and then finding the hypothesis, right? And proving that it actually works, right? And then the transition that you become to prove your theory. Because you move from being the scientist into being the preacher, the prosecutor, and the politician to prove your point, to get people to follow you, to get people to revere what you have created, right? And so there's this beautiful thing that Dr. Vanderkolk says, and he really tries to live by, which is staying in the scientist mindset of that. Even if I've found that in thousands of clients that I've seen and helped, that this happens, it doesn't always happen.
But also, Danelle, I'm curious, how does that show in the physical body? Do you have examples where someone, if they're questioning, is this that? How would that look?
Right. So here's the thing. When we don't speak our authentic truth, right, as we're talking about, the body has a really unique way of storing memories, right? Our mind is connected to our body and it's connected to all of our organs. So when something happens to us that's traumatic, I'm going to use an example, like really simple. Like if you're riding a bicycle on the side of the road and you get bumped in the back by a car and you get knocked off your bicycle and you fall, you hit your head and you get a slight concussion. At the same time that all of this is happening, there's a dog barking across the street at the neighbor's house. You go to the hospital, your concussion's taken care of. Months later down the road, dogs barking. Every single time a dog barks, you get a headache. Why? Dog barking's giving you a headache? This is weird. But what's happened is that your body has recorded the bicycle ride, the car hitting the bicycle, and you falling on your head and getting a concussion with the dog barking. So in your mind, every time a dog barks, it's warning you that a car is going to come and knock you off your bicycle and give you a concussion. This is the easiest way I can explain it, right?
Wow.
It makes the most sense of how our body records information. And it isn't just our mind that has neurons and memory and nerves, right? Things are proven now that we have three brains. We have a brain in the top of our head, we have one in our heart, and we have one in our stomach. So not only do we have these three brains, but we also have memory that lives in every organ of every cell. I'm pretty sure it's going to be every cell once neuroscience gets down to the point where we can understand that our cells have memory, right? Because they do. How would they not do what they do and replenish themselves if they didn't have the memory they had? They need it to replenish us. Thank you. Yes, part of the biology of us. And so once we can understand that, we start recognizing threat, the emotional threat I was talking about, right? Like we don't have this physical threats anymore. You know, we don't have to outrun the lions, tigers, and bears. They're not going to eat us anymore. We don't have to go to the restroom in groups, especially as women on our periods, because we won't get eaten by the wolves. You know, like these things that when we didn't have homes and safety and security like we have now, in our evolution and how we've evolved, then we won't react the way that we do, right? But we're overreacting in our emotions now. So now that we're overreacting in our emotions, we're able to map our body, right? We go back to those experiences, especially in hypnosis. Hypnosis is a great gateway, which Dr. Vanderkolk also agrees with, right? Is that when we can go into the subconscious mind instead of the conscious mind is all caught up. But the subconscious mind is stuck in that trauma. So whatever age you were that happened is where your subconscious mind is stuck at. So it's going to think that you're 3 years old and your dad is coming to beat you every time you hear a man with a really loud, angry voice, right? Because that's what your dad did when he went and spanked you. So now when you hear that, you get that same feeling and you're like, oh, I gotta run and hide because somebody's gonna come and get me now. And that's really danger,
alert,
right?
yeah.
Your whole body is signaling to your brain through this nervous system that runs through your spine saying, go do something now because it's going to hurt you. And when we can pause, the powerful pause, that's when we slow down. When we can say, okay, nervous system, I know you want me to flight. I know you want me to run, but this is an emotional threat, not a physical threat. No bus is going to come and kill me. I'm not actually going to die from this. So just take a minute and slow down. It comes down to protection, prioritization, and punishment. We want to protect, prioritize, and punish ourselves. Obviously protect because we want to survive. Getting out of self and getting into body and just knowing what the physical body is programmed to do genetically is to evolve. So stay here, survival of the fittest. So we have these two different systems. That's why the human side and the divine side, right? Because our body says, procreate, stay alive, procreate, and enjoy the beauty of life, have fun, that's what our nervous system says. And as divine beings, we say, oh, no, there's so much more than that. All of the spiritual realm that we could get into that we won't go into, but it's just so much bigger, right? Is that we've got this human body, but we also have this mind that is such a powerful creator, right? We have the ability to create and destroy, and it's really powerful. So I think that that's really kind of the duality and the paradox of the body and this memory that it keeps to keep us alive, but then also the enlightenment that we have, this intelligence that's inside of us, right?
What you've learned, and you're so educated in this space and also have so much life experience to support helping others now. And so now you do help people in these rapid transformations in their own life, identifying family patterns that are keeping them stuck, etc. And you also have this amazing book called The Body That Saved You, a guide to the nervous system healing. Tell us a little about this and potentially how people could work with you. What does that look like for Danelle?
Right. I knew that I needed to help people understand what the body keeps the score means. How do you know how the body kept the score? Okay, that's great to know that all of my organs have memory and stored all of this stuff. How do I go back to every experience and map out the dog barking, the taste in my mouth, the thing that I saw? Because all of our senses collect information, right? So it's not just what you see, what you hear, it's what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're feeling, everything is included, right? How do you know that? Right. And I'm sitting here going through the process of this learning. And I mean, I was a client of rapid transformational therapy for 6 sessions before I decided to start becoming one. In this struggle of, man, how do I actually change this? Right. Because subconscious programming, yeah, certain things can happen really easily. But if it's really big things that you've believed about yourself your entire life, and it's the construct of your reality, it's really hard to shift into something like rapidly. For me, I'm about to be 45. So I have 45 years of construct built up in my mind that I have to understand and go through and say, okay, what shoe is mine? What shoe is not mine? Through all of those experiences. And then I have to put them back together in a way that I want them to be. It takes time because that's a lot of experiences to shift. So that's why I wrote the book, right? Because understanding what it means to map your body is literally a daily process, moment by moment. going through and just recognizing where you feel safe, where you don't feel safe. What is my authentic voice? What is the angel and devil saying on the side to my authentic voice? Because that's really the construct of our being. We have these voices that go on our head and all these conversations internally through default mode network that nobody even hears. And so that's the part where we can go in and we can kind of dissect that in a subconscious way when our nervous system is relaxed, where it doesn't get activated and send us into fight or flight. So we go into that downstairs primal brain and we can't think straight. And we can't be that enlightened divine being that we know we have inside of us. So that's really why I wrote the book, was to help you be able to do that, right? So the hypnosis is great because you go in and you can understand it, you see it. It's like hypnosis is like taking yourself on an aerial view of the landscape and seeing it from this perspective that's different, that's kind of out of body.
And just by the way, even if they're not local to the Austin area, people could still work with you virtually, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Hypnosis over Zoom. I actually did many sessions myself as a client before becoming a therapist myself in rapid transformational therapy. I started in person and I would drive to Dallas to go see this lady. And I realized, like, gosh, I have a lot of sessions that I need. I don't think I can drive back and forth. So I did start doing online, and they were just as impactful. This energy that we have in the same room is still shared online. It doesn't change anything, really, as long as you don't let it, right? It's all in your own mind of where the blocks are. So if you don't allow that block to be there, it won't be there for you. That was one of the things for me, was like, oh, I needed to feel the energy of the person before I could do the work with them. But no, I didn't. I didn't need to feel the energy in the room because the energy is passed through the conversation. If you're on video and you can see each other's eyes, you can feel each other. The only thing is the physical touch interrupt that happens obviously can't be there. But I don't really feel like it's all that much powerful. Where physical touch, I do believe, is important, which also is reinforced by Dr. Vanderkolk as well, is that we're tribal people. We're communal people. We need connection. And in that, we need touch. We do need the connection. We do need touch. We do need significance and safety, and that someone's proud of us. As a child, we have basic needs when we come out of womb: to be loved, to feel safe, to feel connected. Primal needs of a baby. A baby cries to be tended to, attuned to. It's all about attunement. And when we lack that attunement in those early years, the things that come a little bit later, around 8, 9, when our aura matures, we need to feel seen and heard and validated. And we need to feel celebrated. That's where the validation comes in. Love, safety, significance, connection, and validation are so crucial for us as a person to feel whole. And if we don't get those, then we can't feel whole. While I say don't rely on external validation, it means don't just solely rely on someone else to give you your worth. Give yourself your worth and get connection and significance in people who align with your worth instead of seeking for them to give you the worth.
Absolutely. Profound messages, all of them. For Danelle, I will put her contact info in the bio, her website. If anyone resonates with her and her story, she is just as beautiful in real life as maybe she's no doubt transposing on camera as well. I want to just kind of leave you any closing remarks that you'd like to, finish the episode with.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that the biggest message I think I want to leave everyone with is don't doubt who you are inside, and be brave and vulnerable to say who you are inside and reap the miracles that come from it.
Beautiful. Well said. Amazing.
Thank you.
An honor to tell your story, to know you. I feel like we've bonded very quickly and we have a lot of shared understanding. So, again, thank you. And we'll see you guys and hopefully Danelle next time.
Yeah. And you can find me at danelleland.com, and the book is available there as well. So.
Awesome.
And there's also a course that goes along with the book for people who need a little extra guidance. So
we could all use some guidance. So awesome. And Penny,
And Penny, thank you all for
Yes.
having me. It was so great.